Welcome back to the Conference USA Podcast Roundtable, and happy midweek Conference USA play to those that celebrate. I know tonight we will be celebrating that as we kick off the Conference USA midweek contest with Sam Houston and New Mexico State. That kicks off at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern for those that are watching, but that's not our game of the week here at the Podcast Roundtable. The one that, in our opinion, has the most implications for the championship game happening later this year is this one happening in Delaware. We've got Western Kentucky, who is 2-0 already in Conference USA, holding a firm lead, but they are traveling to the Blue Hens, who really surprised a lot of us with their road win against FIU 2 weeks ago. So it's going to be exciting to see that matchup. And, of course, joining us is going to be representatives of those two programs. We've got Stephen Moffitt with a V from Topper Talk, and then we've got Dan Steenkamer from the Feathers and Field Goal. So really excited to be joined by these two. Again, that kickoff is tomorrow night on Friday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. So hope you tune in. But we're going to go ahead and get right into this matchup. Again, a lot to talk about, but I want to go with the home team first, and we'll bring up Dan here to talk about the Blue Hens. Dan, I guess did you think, again, 2 weeks ago, we had Bryce on to talk about this matchup with FIU, but he was a little weary. Maybe things don't go, we're just happy to be here. But now it's like we have a chance to really put ourselves 2-0 and take out who we all assume would be the front runner for a Conference USA title spot.
Yeah, Jake, thanks so much for having me and having this certainly game of the week format. It's exciting for Delaware to be in a game of the week style game, parents and family weekend in Newark on a Friday night, getting that prime CBS Sports Network slot. It's definitely a big deal. I mean, this will be 10 years to the day on October 3rd that Delaware last had a regular season home game, nationally televised. So there's a lot of fanfare involved with that, but in many ways, because there is momentum that you alluded to, Delaware exceeding external expectations down at FIU. But I think there's an understanding that WKU is another beast in terms of the program continuity, the offensive firepower, the proven success that listeners of the program here, I guess, don't need me explaining as the newer guy to the group. I mean, Tyson Helton's group is a strong one, needless to say. But I do think that the fan base is encouraged by the start. And at the same time, there's so much more to possibly achieve if Delaware can put it together against WKU. It's a new spot for UD this week, being on paper the favorite in the game. I think Delaware's really done a good job embracing the underdog mentality and that newcomer underdog role thus far this year. But now, at least officially on paper, Delaware being the favorite, being on home field, a slight favorite. So how does Delaware channel this new energy, needing to block out some of the love that UD is getting on G5, top 25s here and there, and just maybe Conference USA power rankings are giving Delaware more love? How does Delaware stay focused and really give all attention to an opponent that certainly deserves it?
The part that interests me the most going into the matchup is Delaware has nothing to lose in my eyes. I think if they lose this game, it's kind of what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to lose this game. But now, as you alluded to, you're leading by Vegas standards in this game. You already given yourself a 3-point handicap. So I think that obviously that speaks volume to what Delaware has been able to do. But these are two of the best scoring offenses so far in Conference USA, and I'm sure, Moff, I'm going to turn this to you. One thing about this matchup, again, I guess the pressure of it all, because maybe going in when this game's on your schedule, you're thinking, okay, Delaware, we can check that one off. But you have to think to yourself, not so fast. Really, anything can happen. Plus, you're on the road.
Yeah, coming into this game preseason-wise, admittedly, I didn't know a lot about the Delaware program and past history and success. And then, as the game has gotten closer, now we've seen some game film this year. I'm very impressed with Delaware and what they're doing and what they're bringing to the table. On paper, this is a game that's just evenly matched across the board, especially with the offensive output that both the teams have had. One of the variables that could come into play is, this is a short week for WKU. We just traveled 5 days ago, and we're traveling again today to make that long trip up there. Just quick turnaround, 6 days, short week, and they're coming off a bye. Historically, they've been very good on their home field. They've been very good coming off of bye weeks. So really, I mean, we have to respect our opponent, whether we're the longtime, CUSA, I don't want to say the standard, but we're always near the top of the rankings. We win a lot of games, and they're the newbie. to FBS and to Conference USA in general. They've already proven with a couple nice wins that, they're here and they can spoil your season. So we're going to have to come in and play a really, really good game to get this victory on the road.
Not familiar with the Blue Hens. We think we all know Joe Flacco, right? We've got to know Joe. And I bring that up because you've got another great quarterback matchup. We all know Maverick McIver, but maybe one that we all didn't know. And I know the Blue Hens didn't know that was going to be their starting quarterback. Tell me about this guy. I know. Again, Bryce talked a lot about Minicucci, if you will, there for Delaware, but the guy continues to impress. He's second in the conference to McIver. The numbers are there, and he has the leading wide receiver in Conference USA as well. So this duo for the Blue Hens has been dynamic, and it's certainly put them in the position again to be one of the top 2 in scoring offenses in Conference USA.
Yeah, Jake, it really has been a success story for Delaware on offense to overcome Zach Marker, so unfortunately going down with another knee injury in the opening game of Delaware's season. And I'm sure Bryce described it on the prior game of the week that Delaware was spotlighted in. But Nick Minicucci is not, I guess, your average or maybe a typical or expected QB2 who hasn't had a lot of time. Nick Minicucci has played a high number of pressure situations for Delaware. He was in the mix to be a starter this season. And I did view Nick Minicucci as a starting caliber going into the year. It felt as though Delaware had multiple options that could be a quality starter at minimum. And in this offense, Nick Minicucci's had the experience to understand what's most important in Ryan Carty's offense, and that's getting the ball to explosive playmakers in space. Delaware's offense is predicated on that they call X plays, explosive plays. And I know that's not a terminology that's unique to just the Blue Hens, but it's especially important watching Delaware's offense over time. It's an offense that's built for scoring from outside the red zone and really getting in the end zone in fewer plays. I mean, the fewer plays you run, the fewer chances that something can go sideways or can go wrong. You think about the turnover margin and how critical that is in certainly every game to pull up that cliche. But Nick Minicucci has, by and large, made quality decisions both in the passing game and in terms of choosing when to read in the QB run game and when to go ahead and put your foot in the ground, tuck the football, and go north and south. Minicucci does have enough speed to get around the edge and extend plays and get yards where he can on plays that are off schedule, perhaps. But Minicucci's running threat is greatest when Delaware is in tighter quarters, is in the red zone, and all of a sudden it's not a huge yards after the catch X play touchdown from 30, 40 yards or 50 plus yards out. Instead, it's okay. Of course, the field's compressed, and can the QB make decisions on whether to keep it himself or hand it off to Joe Silver at running back? Nick Minicucci's answered that call for Delaware so far this season, and that's definitely been a key catalyst for Delaware turning some heads.
Certainly a lot of weapons for him, which makes life easy. For the Western side, though, I look at their schedule and what they've had in the first 3 weeks. 41 against Sam Houston, and then you have 55 against Northern Alabama. And then you even Toledo, Nevada, Missouri State. You go 21, 30, 21, 31, 27 points respectively. You set the bar real high in those first 2 weeks for what this offense can do. I guess I'm going to pose this question to you, Moth. Is this just a victim of playing really good defenses because you've played 3 strong defenses in a row? Or do you think maybe this playbook has been figured out over the short season? I guess again, it's maybe too early to tell, but are you concerned with the dwindling points per game number that you've experienced over the last 3 weeks?
No, but that's a good question because it's definitely been a hot topic within just the Hilltopper circle that, if you comb over our stats, our points per game, yards per game, production, everything, red zone success, Daniel and I talked about this on their preview a couple of days ago. The Western offense looks really good, but then when you start diving in the game by game results, you kind of see that dip that we've had the last few games. And a lot of it has just been slow starts. I mean, against, the last couple games, we're not scoring touchdowns in the first quarter. It's just really slow starts to the offense. Then we're making adjustments. And then by the third quarter, then we're starting to have some scoring drives. So, as good as this offense has looked, big picture wise, 35 points per game is good. That's going to win you a lot of games in Conference USA. We've left a lot of meat on the bones, and we're just not as efficient. We're not as consistent as we need to be. And I think our best football this season is still ahead of us. I was telling someone earlier, I'd rather be playing our best football in November than right now in September and early October. So I think we're starting to see some adjustments and some growth. We've seen a little bit more leaning on the run game the last couple games against Nevada and against Missouri State, and we have some very capable running backs. Offensive line seems to be improving every single game, and all that's going to do is open up the passing game. And Maverick McIver is surely capable of finding a lot of different weapons. I mean, we've got 6, 7, 8 guys that he can find in open space and make a play. So I'm not concerned about it, but it is a point of emphasis that we need to start these games faster, because what you don't want to happen is go on the road, start slow, dig yourself a hole or a turnover here or there, and you're trying to play catch up. That's not a position you want to be in, and what's going to be a really good crowd up there in Delaware. So getting on the board quicker, starting out the game with some momentum is a must, because we've got plenty of opportunity to score even more points, even though we're hitting that 35 points per game on the season average so far.
Well, to keep it on the Hilltoppers, we all talk about how good that offense is, but even more impressive for me anyways, as someone on the outside looking in, is the defense. The defense is actually arguably what has won you your last 2 weeks against Nevada and against Missouri State. I guess going into the year, if there was a side of the ball that you were probably more concerned about, it was that defensive side of the ball. But I guess you've learned a lot about them and how much they've grown in these last 2 matchups.
Yeah, the defense was definitely the bigger question mark. When we did our summer series, we do a position breakdown series. The defensive line and the linebackers were both 2 big question marks. The secondary felt really good about. We got a couple returning starters, a couple transfers coming in on the back end that I felt fine with where our secondary would be. And plus, we were coming off a season where we were top 10 in the nation in pass defense. It was really that front 7. Could we get pressure on the quarterback? Could we stop the run? That's kind of been our Achilles heel the last couple of years. And while we have seen instances of games where there's been poor tackling, there's been poor angles, there's been big explosive run plays given up, for the most part, this defense has been really solid as far as bend don't break. Teams will move the ball between the 20s, but they're not punching it in for 6 and getting in the end zone. They'll have to settle for a field goal, or we're getting a turnover. So I've been really impressed by this defense. It's nice to see players stepping up. And like you said, the defense has absolutely won us the game the last couple weeks when the offense just wasn't quite getting it done against some good defenses, respectively. The defense just stepped up, bowed up, and got us the ball back. And then we were able to lean on Lavelle Wright to salt the game away, running the ball for first downs.
On the flip side there, Dan, Delaware, again, maybe not necessarily the strength of the program, but in the one Conference USA game we've seen, that they hold Keon Jenkins, who was the unanimous number 1 pick in our preseason quarterback rankings. You have to think again, like that shows signs that if you're able to contain, and not only just any Jenkins quarterback, a very mobile Jenkins quarterback, obviously the most mobile quarterback in Conference USA. So again, I think my question I'm posing to you is, have we seen the best that this defense has to offer? Because that was obviously a great showing against the Panthers.
Yeah, defense did travel for Delaware last time out down in Miami. Delaware fans thinking about Delaware's defensive X plays allowed against Colorado and also against UConn. It definitely was a conversation in Newark externally from the program in terms of observers saying there's more to come from this defense. You need to see Delaware's defense supplement this Blue Hen offense a bit better in a number of ways. And that defense did travel down to FIU, seeing FIU having its perhaps initial strength of run game taken away or taken out of the game by the fact that Delaware built such a lead down against the Panthers and getting FIU in a second half frequent, predictable passing situation. So that was big for Delaware's defense to execute later in the ball game and close out the game with a strong finish, not even allowing FIU to have a late garbage time type touchdown at the very end of the game. So that finish is kind of a core value Delaware likes to say in its program of committed, relentless, and then finish. So to have that finish symbolically was big for Delaware's defense in the second half. I go back to the first half, though, or at least earlier in the game, seeing Delaware get takeaways, an end zone interception by safety Myson Pollard, Later on, you had another interception by my son Pollard, more so around midfield, and having those takeaways was big for Delaware. There were a couple near takeaways against UConn that wound up being called back or didn't end up panning out, but against FIU, to get the ball on a dime, turning in a dime of an instant back in Delaware's offense's hands, that's just major for Delaware's efforts, because as it is for every team, but Delaware's record is really strong under Coach Cardia in this era when Delaware does win the turnover battle. And Delaware's defense measures havoc rate. It's one of those defenses that talks about havoc, and whether that's pass deflections, certainly takeaways, TFLs, of course, to include sacks. All of those things are major tenets of this 3 high life defense, they call it at Delaware, with the 3 safety look. It's a base 3 safety look up top. And then you have, of course, with that, the total of 5 DBs in a 3-3-5 look. So you're looking back at the front of the defense with 3 defensive linemen, although a mix of 4-man at the front looks as well. So Delaware's defense did achieve most of its objectives in that way against FIU. But I think going against Western Kentucky's offense, it really profiles more like UConn's offense did as compared to what FIU was bringing forward. So I think Delaware fans are definitely buckling up for looking for a lot out of their defense and hoping that the home field can give Delaware's defense that jolt.
Well, what keys to the game is it going to take for either one of these teams to come out top, as well as what did the roundtable think was going to happen in tomorrow night's game? But before we get into that, let's thank today's sponsor. Conseco Group has been transforming visions into reality since 1987. Known for making the impossible possible, they specialize in pre-construction consulting, construction management, design build, and renovations. With a hands-on, client-focused approach, Conseco Group consistently delivers high-quality results while maximizing investment. Based in Nashville and trusted across Middle Tennessee, their reach spans the entire Southeast. Conseco Group, building excellence one project at a time. Learn more at consecogroup.com or call 615-298-9907. Thanks to the Conseco Group for sponsoring our episode today. Again, we are highlighting this Conference USA Game of the Week matchup happening tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, where the Hilltoppers travel to Delaware to face the Blue Hens in a battle of undefeated teams. Dan, you touched on it quite a bit there, what really needs to happen, but let's dive a little bit deeper in there and maybe give me something different. What needs to happen for the Blue Hens to win tomorrow night?
Turning it back to offense for Delaware, I think Joe Silver has really played quite well as the lead running back for Delaware. Viron Ellison has been that RB2 as a transfer for Delaware in his first season as a Blue Hen. Seeing Delaware have success on the ground will really, I think, potentially make life easier for Delaware to throw against that WKU secondary that Moff has mentioned. I look at Silver's averages. What can Joe Silver average? And it's not just him. I mentioned the Delaware running game because in many ways it's the Delaware offensive line that I should have mentioned much earlier. It's an O-line that has a veteran presence in multiple places. Anwar O'Neal is an anchor at that left tackle spot, helping to seal off running opportunities for Delaware, let alone in pass pro. So I think the way Delaware controls up front, and controls is a strong word, but at least settles in up front and is able to set the stage for Delaware's variety of options running the ball. Silver, Ellison, and Minicucci, a trio of runners right there. What are Delaware's averages? Can it be north of 4 yards a carry? Can you set yourself up for a good money down conversion rates, 3rd and 4th down conversion rates? That's on my mind for Delaware's offense. Need to be able to move the ball consistently and strike quickly against this vaunted Hilltoppers offense.
Moff, to you now. Hilltoppers, what do they need to do tomorrow night to make sure that, again, they maintain control of this conference and, I guess, in a better way, put the newcomer back in their place a little bit?
Yeah, for me, it's quite simple what we need to do, and it's things we haven't done the last several games, even though we found ways to win, have some ugly victories, which are nice to have. At the end of the year, a win's a win. But we have to start fast. Going on the road, nice crowd. You can't start slow, give them momentum, and dig yourself a hole. We've got to come out the gate and put some points on the board on our first drive. I'm not sure that's happened at all this season. I think we've punted or turned the ball over every first drive this season, just going off my memory. Then we have to win the turnover battle. We saw what it did against Toledo. We had 2 turnovers in our first 5 offensive plays. dug ourselves a hole. It changes the whole game flow. It changes your script. All of a sudden, you're trying to score a 14-point touchdown that doesn't exist. You get in your head a little bit. You get in your own way, and it just got uglier. As the game went on until backups were in, and then we were able to get some momentum and score. Granted, props to Toledo. They were a tough defense, very well coached. And then lastly, we have to win the third down battle. We have to be successful converting third downs, and that starts on first and second down. We have to be successful and stay ahead of the chains and not get behind the chains. And that's going to definitely include leaning on that run game, which has come on the last couple weeks. And then on the flip side of that, the defense has to win first and second downs, keep Delaware in third and long situations, and get them off the field. If they're converting 50% or more of third downs, it could be a long night. Same for us. We need to be in that 50% range of success extending drives, and we have to put points on the board. I feel like this could be a game that's a race to 40. Whoever gets to 40 first, or like Daniel said on their version of the podcast, might be whoever has the ball last and has that opportunity to put the game away, man. It's going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to it.
I can't stress enough how impressed I am with this Delaware program, and I'm not the only one that has been impressed. And I'll bring up our Conference USA picks by the roundtable this week. The Blue Hens have pressure from Vegas being the favorites. Maybe they have some of their own internal pressure, but the roundtable themselves has put all the pressure on the Blue Hens. They are a minor favorite. I have 7 picks to 5 Hilltopper picks. I myself have gone with the Hilltoppers. Until they've been dethroned, I can't really get myself to that point. And I think those that picked the Hilltoppers are really in that same boat. The thing I think is funny is we have our more veteran podcasters have all chosen Hilltopper, and a lot of our newcomers have chosen the Blue Hens, the underdogs, but they're not really underdogs. But Daniel, I guess, are you surprised at this number? I mean, I have to 7. I was surprised when I was receiving all these picks that over half of them are for the Blue Hens.
Yeah, I think folks are probably paying attention to the schedule and how it's shaken out. I've been saying a few times this week off podcast air, I think the league office, I don't know how much they're thinking about it consciously in getting into and out of the weekday CUSA portion in October, but it is favorable for Delaware on paper, the way things lining up with the rest factor that Moff alluded to so astutely. So I think that helps. Home field and just this general buzz helps. Being convincing on the road in conference, I think helped Delaware's image. That's for sure. But I personally, my prediction was a Western Kentucky win over on the Feathers and Field Goals episode that Moff has alluded to. So I'm kind of thinking along similar lines in terms of having just that default respect. And then it's been backed up for Western Kentucky so far this year in finding different ways to win. I used the phrase, and I think I even heard Coach Helton may have had similar words in his presser this week, just more in the tank still to come for Western Kentucky. I got that sense that there is more to come in the tank. But talking about rest, will it be hard to have that back-to-back set of road games on the shorter schedule traveling for Western Kentucky heading into this Friday? So I think that does help maybe in a game that's so evenly matched. That maybe I could see some pods here tilting it towards Delaware's prediction based on that.
Moff, the disrespect, and that's coming from a Blue Raider. I mean, man, I was, again, surprised to say the least, but at the end of the day, this means nothing to what's going to happen on the field tomorrow. But are you surprised by this result?
Not really. When I was making my picks and, just for the round table and even for our episode when I was having to pick a winner, I was chewing on that decision for a while. I was like, man, we can absolutely go up there and get beat. It could be a multiple score Delaware win if we don't bring our best game. And I've said that multiple times. We're going to have to go up there and play our cleanest and best game to date to come out of there with a victory. That's not really saying a whole lot because we haven't played a clean game as far as turnovers, penalties, starting fast with our offense. We finished strong offensively. We have finished strong defensively, but there's not been a full 60 minutes. There's not even been a full 45 minutes where we played good, sound football. And yet here we are sitting at 4-1 overall, 2-0 in the conference. So you kind of feel good in knowing, okay, we can win ugly, we can win gritty, we can win leaning on our defense, but we're known for our offense. We're known for scoring 30 plus, 35 plus points a game, and we haven't been there the last few weeks. like Helton said and Daniel alluded to, there's definitely more in the tank. There's more meat on the bone that we have to take advantage of, or we're going to come into a game against a good opponent. Not that we haven't had good opponents in the past, but we've just been lucky to get out there with victories. And we're going to go in there and we're going to lose a ball game if we don't execute more soundly and play a cleaner, overall better game in all three phases.
Well, set the table one last time, guys, as we wrap up this game of the week. Again, 6 p.m. tomorrow night Central, 7 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. The Vegas odds currently, as we are recording this, is at 2.5. Again, in the Blue Hens' favor, the over/under at 61.5. They see this as being a high-scoring game. Daniel, last question to you. Do you have a score prediction for us?
Yes, I guess I put the cart in front, or the horse and cart thing. I get mixed up all the time, but I put the cart in front of the horse a second ago. But I do have Western Kentucky 40, Delaware 37. So that total I do have getting up there. I actually had been treating score predictions in Delaware's games a little bit conservatively in terms of fewer points scored, and then coming away from FIU, I said, okay, I'm gonna give myself more liberty to actually just forecast the points here. And in this matchup, it does lend itself to that. I just look at, even prior to Delaware joining Conference USA, really marquee conference games in Delaware Stadium against some of that given league's best opponents. It has given Delaware trouble. Delaware has had close losses to its toughest opponents in the CAA in FCS football days. I think about marquee games against rival Villanova in the past. Elon, Richmond have pulled out close wins against Delaware. These are teams I'm mentioning from the FCS just because they are, like WKU, a standard bearer. Because I was thinking of that term, Moff, earlier when you started touching on the standard. I do think of the tops like toward that standard bearer status. So Delaware has a mixed record. Even in this Coach Carty era, does have a bit of a mixed record against standard bearers in the league. And now being in CUSA, I'm going to take a proven approach to the team that I follow. And so that's where I do go with, hey, I could see Western Kentucky, that kicker, John Cannon, that kind of range, maybe having the ball last, or Western Kentucky's veteran offense snuffing out the clock late in the game. I just envision that being a possibility with my score prediction.
Moff, to you now. It looks like Dan is saying it is going to be a race to 40, and it sounds like maybe you think it's going to be high scoring as well.
Yeah, I'm not ready to take the red sunglasses off yet and let my Hilltopper bias go to the side. I still think, like I said earlier, that we have our best football ahead of us. I'm optimistic when I see that we haven't played well and we still have kept ourselves in games and been pushing 30 points. And I had a couple games obviously above that, but we're going to have to go play our best game. But I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I think every game, the last 3 weeks since Toledo, we've seen ourselves taking a step forward. We've seen our run game start to develop to one of the better ones in the league now, which is not a Helton staple. And if we can lean on our run game, that's going to do nothing but open up the pass game, which has always been a staple and a strength for us. So, yeah, I absolutely think this is going to be the game where we take another step forward. We see things get easier earlier, more efficient, put some points on the board in the first half, maybe not create separation, because I think it's going to be one of those games where we race to 40. I have a final score prediction well over the over, 42-41 Hilltopper victory.
I'm stunned, really. Both of the scores you guys have listed as the outside, I guess, unbiased predictor of this game for those that even care to listen to what a Blue Raider has to say about this game, because no one's going to care about what I have to say about my football team for the rest of this year. But when I look at this matchup, I can't help but feel like there is just one team that has predominantly time over time put themselves ahead. And I look at Coach Helton and what he's done with the Hilltopper program over the last couple of years, although those people in Bowling Green want to fire him year after year. And trust me, I've been a part of 6-win programs year after year. I would love to have 8-9 wins on a yearly basis and be upset about it. That would be great. But here we are, 2 straight weeks. I know the score of Nevada doesn't really show this, but for the most part, that was a 1-possession ball game. And Nevada, MTSU came out victors on that game because at the end of the day, Nevada's offense is not very good, but your defense won you that football game. And you look at last week, Missouri State, your defense realistically won you that football game. At the end of the day, a team that is as experienced with a staff that's experienced as Helton is, I have to put that experienced team on top in a situation where you have such a young program in Conference USA ahead. For me, as I'm not necessarily a betting man, but when I see lines that high, I normally get scared because Vegas knows something. And I would normally just say, oh, both of these programs average over 30 points, 61.5. That seems way too low. It's going to be the over. I am on the other side of this. I think Western does get that fast start they've been looking for the last couple of weeks. I think Western gets ahead in this situation, and they just lean heavily on that experienced group that they have, that experienced coaching staff to get them through this game on the road. I like the Hilltoppers by 2 touchdowns in this one. I think it is going to be somewhere in that 42-28 ballpark. Again, really pushing that over-under. But I wouldn't be surprised to see one team, even if it's not the Hilltoppers, kind of run away with this one. The Hilltoppers at times have looked vulnerable, but I just find it hard to bet against Tyson Helton right now. Again, all things considered, being a Blue Raider, I think it's still WKU's conference to lose at this point. But this will tell us a lot about what kind of team Delaware is, if it is as close as we have talked about this entire evening. But guys, I appreciate Dan again from Feathers and Field Goals for joining us, Stephen Moffitt from Topper Talk for joining us. Thanks to you, the listener, for joining us once again. You don't want to miss one of these Game of the Week uploads. We do this every week prior to our Game of the Week, so you don't miss next week's. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the Conseco Group for sponsoring today's episode. And until next time, we'll see you at the Game of the Week.